Hey, good morning, everybody. Wednesday, August 19th. Good to be here for another Watercooler Wednesday. Always bringing you interesting case studies, things that are going on in the industry, and also things going on in our office, around the water cooler, so to speak. So I got some things to share with you today. No PowerPoint today, more discussion format today. Busy month, busy, well, let me say busy last 45 days or so, closing on about eight transactions and various speeds of closings. I'll talk about that and why, and what some of the holdups have been. Um, First thing is, as a part of all of that, are brokers' price opinions, BPOs. And in our industry, it's important to understand the value of the collateral that backs our investment, right? When we buy a loan, it's backed by something of value. We want that something of value to be greater than what we have invested. And then you go into the percentage of greater than, and the lower your investment to value ratio, the safer that investment is. In other words, if you're paying $20,000 for a note and it's backed by a $100,000 home, piece of land, whatever, you're in it for 20% ITV. It's about, how safe is that, right? I mean, if things go horribly wrong, your $20,000 investment's backed by something of $100,000, which you'll either get the property or get cashed out at a foreclosure sale, that sort of thing. Versus if you paid $90,000 for a note and it's backed by a $100,000 property, now you virtually have very limited to no margin at all, because if you take that property back, you've essentially paid retail. It probably needs work, right? If a person wasn't paying you, I imagine that they're not putting effort into the property upkeep. So you're looking at, having to fix it up, having to sell at a discount, that sort of thing. So that's why it's important to understand the value of the collateral. Now, back in the day, again, we used to buy lottery winnings, casino winnings, professional athlete contracts, all that sort of stuff, and all those are something of value. So it's the same concept, no matter what type of note that you're buying. It's that first thing you look at is your risk, and you look at what am I investing and what's backing it? What is my worst case scenario? And if your worst case scenario works out where you're making money, there you go. Now you can move forward with the investment. So BPOs, brokers' price opinions, have always been an important part of this industry, because even though we're not buying the real estate, it is our collateral. And that's why it's so important, because remember, the note side of the business is real estate. Okay, we're all in the same real estate business. Real estate, people in real estate either pay cash for a property or they borrow to get a property. If they're borrowing, that's the note space. You know what I mean? So we are opposite sides of the same coin. And that's why I always say, a smart investor is going to have skills in both of those areas. Real estate investors absolutely should understand the note business. The note business should absolutely understand the real estate business, because it all evolves around that property value. So if we're looking at real property, what's it worth? It's important to come up with that valuation number. So in the past, we've always relied upon BPOs. BPOs are typically done by a licensed real estate agent that goes out to the property, observes, makes an opinion based upon the outside of the property. They go back to the office, they run their comparable sales analysis, probably through MLS and other services that they have available to them, to come up with the three best comparable sales, homes that are the most similar and have sold the most recently in a close proximity as possible. And they do the same thing with listings. And then, using their professional opinion, they will make adjustments to come up with a value of what your subject property is. And normally they'll have, here's the value, but they're going to give you a range as well. Okay, great. Many times they'll further break it down. They'll say, this is right now, this is 30-day sale, this is 60 to 90-day sale, that sort of thing. Okay, so we have a good range of value. And it's important to have those boots on the ground, so to speak, so they can visually see that property. And that's always the way we did it because, quite frankly, when I first started in this, we didn't have the internet, so we didn't have AI, we didn't have, all these other services. MLS, she's MLS back then was in books, paper form that got this thick. And we'd throw them out every month because they were no good. I mean, talk about burning trees. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. And I was a real estate agent trying to sell property back then. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just a dumpster full of this stuff. And then when things went online, a big difference. So today, a lot of people depend upon what these online services value a property to be. So we all know the services, right? Zillow became very, very popular. You have Realtor.com, you've got Redfin, you've got all kinds of different sources that you can look at that are typically free to give you an idea of what that property is about. And those are really good. They do serve a purpose for that quick, immediate valuation. So if you're looking at a node and you want to see the property value, it's really easy to jump on a couple of websites and take the average. Well, Redfin says it's worth 80. This one says it's worth 95. This one says 75. This one's at 93. So it's probably worth somewhere between 70 and 90. Okay, great. That might be fine enough for you to go, that's worth it then for me to continue looking at this note because the note's only 30 grand, right? So it's good for that. But how good are the online sources to giving you the true value or a closer value based upon the condition of the property? That's where the online model fails. Okay, Zillow doesn't know what the property condition is. In fact, it assumes it's in marketable condition. All of them do. All of them excuse me, all of them have different algorithms to come up with a valuation, and that's based on all the data that they collect. I mean, if you remember Zillow, when Zillow first started, there were some areas that the valuations were very good, and there were other areas where the valuations were very bad. Let's face it. Well, why? What was the difference there? Data. If you're getting a Zillow opinion on an area that has a lot of sales and stuff that have happened over the last year, your data is going to be really good. But if it's in an area that's more rural or less sales activity, the valuation the algorithms that they use just don't, they're not able to pull it together. So now Zillow, because of all the transactions and now the tie-in with realtors and everything else, has gotten better and better over time. Redfin, Realtor, all those other ones use different algorithms based on the data that they have, but none of them know the property condition. That's where that format breaks down. So I know there's a lot of people that say eventually appraisers, realtors who do BPOs are going to be put out of business because why do we need them? We can go online and find the value of the property. The reason is that they're still going to be around for some time is the property condition. So what about AI? So now we've got the other alternative with AI. I run when I do due diligence. I've got Grok. That's the AI that I prefer. I think that's going to be the best in the industry. I have that on the side all the time, and I ask it property valuations. What does it do? It pulls all the information it can get from Realtor.com, Redfin, everything else, and gives you an opinion of value. It might even search sales in the area, that sort of thing. Now, it does go, if you prompt it properly, a little step further where you can see, hey, did they pull permits on this house for any work to be done? Anything like that? Is there anything that shows this, that, and the other? And it can pull some additional intelligence, if you will, to the equation. But is it still going to know the overall property condition? Not yet. I could see it doing that. I mean, if it has a Google picture, it can look at the outside of a property and probably at some point in time give you an opinion of what work needs to be done and what it might look like in the inside. Because don't we do the same thing? When I look at a property, if you're doing a BPO drive-by, you can't go into the house. We don't own the house. We're buying the lien on the property. We can't have that borrower say, hey, we got to come in and do a walkthrough BPO. Can't do that. We don't own the property. They're going to say, what are you talking about? You're not coming to our house. So you're going to do an external BPO, drive-by BPO, as they call it, right? And you're going to project based on the visual evidence that you see on the outside, what is the more likely case of what the inside looks like. If the outside's impeccable, typically we can assume that the inside is going to be very clean. If the outside's a mess, just toys and stuff all over, guess what? It's going to be the same in the inside of the house as well. If there's stuff falling off, pretty good shot that that's what's going on the inside of the house. And that's not a bulletproof system, but it is more of an educated guess based upon the visual evidence or intelligence that you have. So I do think AI will get to that point where it can examine a picture, but then you run into, well, how recent is the picture? So there's always going to be that little dynamic, but that's the investor's risk in all of this, right? It's never going to be bulletproof. In fact, no one can tell you exactly what a property is worth until it's sold, right? Because that's when the buyer and seller agree. And that becomes, well, apparently that's what it was worth, at least to those two parties. Now, it doesn't mean that's what it was worth to you or the next person that comes along or what happens in the economy. So it's always a moving target. And what we're trying to do is get as close as we can to that target as possible. Now, if our note is here and our target's moving up in this space, right? So we're at $30,000 for an investment and the property value is fluctuating somewhere between $90,000 and $120,000. Who cares? We're fine. We're good. That's what we have to determine. If that gets closer to what we have invested in the property, that's where the risk comes in. So for now, my default position with my clients is we order a BPO. That's it on every deal that we do. Have I broken that? Yes. Why? Am I contradicting myself? No. Default position is for me and my clients, get a BPO. It's worth $100 to get that extra information. It's a cost of doing business. It'll keep you safe. But the default position doesn't mean you have to do it every time. So when are times that I don't do it? Well, the times I don't do it is just when all of the evidence that I see, maybe I look at Google Maps and the imagery, I'm looking at a note in August and the imagery, I just get lucky and it's from June 2026. I'm looking at the property. Let's face it, I'm looking at it. And if that looks good, nice. I look at the neighborhood, all that sort of stuff. I run my demographics, find out what's going on in the neighborhood, the real estate trends, all that sort of stuff. I'm armed with that knowledge to go, yeah, you know what? That's easily worth $150,000, give or take 10,000 bucks. We're only paying $50,000 for the note. I think we're good, you know, and therefore I won't order a BPO. So if I understand the business model of who I'm buying a note from. There's a lot of investors, for example, that they buy discounted, heavily discounted property, either directly from the government through some kind of a seizure, whether that's a foreclosure for property taxes or mortgage payments or something else. They'll look at estate sales, people going through probate, that sort of stuff. Tax sales is another way they look at these things, and they buy them really inexpensively. Okay, fine, good. And then they turn around and sell them with financing. When you sell with financing, you open the buying opportunity up to more people. And typically you can get more for that property because you're selling it on terms. They don't have to go to a bank. They might have to put lower down payment. They don't have all these scrutiny on their income, that sort of thing. Qualifications are much lower. The threshold's much lower. So, and it's quicker. So yes, you'll have more people come in and have the opportunity to buy that property on terms. What you have to be careful of are the ones who artificially sell that property for more than it's worth. They're setting that borrower up for failure. They're saying, we'll sell it to you here. And by the way, it needs work. You're going to have to fix up the work. You're going to have to do the work. Okay. Now there's other people in that industry where we buy it really cheap. we sell it under retail value, have the borrower say, look, you fix it up, it's going to be worth more, but we're selling it to you. We're buying wholesale, we're selling wholesale. Okay. So you have to ultimately determine what is the as is value for that property. You can't look at the after repaired value, so to speak. You can't look at market value on deals like that because it's not up to market standards because it hasn't been renovated. And those renovations are oftentimes left up to the borrower who's always going to get around to it. And they don't. And things could get worse. So if you're looking at Zillow or any of those other sources that I named on a property that comes from a seller who is selling it that way, you're going to be looking at the property in marketable condition. But the problem is the property itself is not in marketable condition and therefore is not worth what you think it is. And that's where you're going to run into issues. So that's why I default to a BPO. And if you're in the business long enough, like I've been, I know a lot of these sellers. I understand their business model. We have 4 deals right now. I just have to wait on the BPOs. I have no choice because I don't have recent pictures of the property. I don't know what work was done on the property, and I don't know the condition. But I do know when it was sold, there was work that needed to be done. I have to get a BPO. There's no question about it. Which leads me to the next part, which was we had our go-to source, Baldwin Advisory Group. I knew Dickie Baldwin for probably 15 years. He was my go-to person, as he was for a lot of people in the industry to get BPOs. And he was pretty good about it and efficient and had BPOs done nationwide, usually 2, 3 days. Rural, okay, maybe it's a little longer. But unfortunately, Dickie Baldwin passed away and it left a little void in the industry. So he had an impact on the industry. And that void is not easily being filled because right now, not a lot of people want to do BPOs. I've tried local agents, I've tried other sources. There was a source that took over for Baldwin Advisory Group. They gave it 30 days and they were done because I get it, the margins are small. Right? You pay $100 for a BPO, the agent's not even getting $100, right? Somebody's taking a VIG off of that, so they're getting less than $100 to do a BPO. So that begs the question, who's going to do that? What kind of real estate agent's going to do that? Well, I can tell you it's not going to be like a couple of friends of mine that we have lunch every Friday, where one of the guys there is one of the top selling agents in Florida, in the top 20, and he's selling millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate every single month. He's not going to do a BPO for 75 bucks. It's a waste of his time. I get that. But you also have struggling real estate agents that are trying to get that first listing or trying to get that house sold, just getting started in the business. And they would love to make, why not? It take them several hours, perhaps, maybe 2 hours. They make 75 bucks. Pretty easy. They get on MLS, they run their comparable sales, they're running analysis. Good training for them, by the way, to be able to value real estate that way. So it's a learning exercise for them. They get paid to do it. Fantastic. I tried finding local agents on these other 4 deals that I'm working on. Nobody's interested. Nobody's interested. So it became very, very difficult. And, it slowed me down on these deals, no question about it. But you also have to hold your discipline sometimes. I don't want to go and close on a deal just going, well, I couldn't get a BPO, so we did it anyway. That's foolish. Especially understanding the model is they sold it about a year or two ago. Work needed to be done. We don't know what they did. And the market valuations can fluctuate greatly. I'm not going to buy this and close on this just for the sake of doing it because I couldn't find a BPO. So I had to hold the discipline on this. And I finally got hooked up with a good source. And I got a shout out to Paper Stack in particular, Brett Berkey over there at Paper Stack. Appreciate it because I started reaching out to everybody. Rick at Paper Stack. I reached out to a bunch of people in the industry like BPOs. Who's doing them? I can't find anybody who's reliable who can get these things done. I say reliable because I did find some other sources eventually that would do PPOs. A week and a half goes by, no PPO. And they're like, yeah, we still haven't got around to doing it. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't operate a business that way. I need to know that these are getting done. I need them done in a couple of days. So back to sourcing. And so Brett over there at Paper Stack, again, appreciate it. He hooked me up with another gentleman who hooked me up with what I think is going to be a great source. They're called Valor Valuations. And I texted over to this new source to me, and I got a phone call. Well, it started with a text. I got a text right away from Janet McLean, who is the owner of Valor, VALOR, valuations.com, by the way. And they do this nationwide. They have a couple of different models. They can do your standard drive-by BPO. They can do an AI assist with a drive-by BPO. They can do walkthrough BPOs. And as you might gain from the term Valor, they have very skilled veterans that are behind the company and delivering all of these BPOs. So that's an awesome thing as well. So I look forward to working with them. And so she called me, by the way, which I really appreciated, from a convention. She wasn't even in the office. Called me on a break from the convention, understood what I was looking for, my story, and she said, "Okay, email me these four addresses and I'm going to put them through right now. We'll figure out how you pay me, later on. We'll get you set up with an account, but let's just get these done." And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's perfect. That's what I like. So that's going to be my go-to source on this. And I thought I would share that with everybody as well. I don't have any final answers, interest in Valor. They haven't paid me, to present this or anything like that. But I just like good people with good service, that just understand, hey, this guy needs these BPOs. Let me just get them done. We'll figure out the rest later on. That really meant a lot to me, that she would do that. And calling me when, she clearly could have said, you know what, I'm in a convention in Vegas. I'll call you when I get back to the office, so that was awesome. So that's a source for BPO, and that's really really important. Once again, because you do have to understand what the collateral value is, because it can go up and down. Markets change. I mean, face it, right now, overall in the United States, property values are starting to dip a little bit. And it's not because people are getting foreclosed upon and stuff like that. Foreclosure rates are still relatively low, everybody. I know they've ticked up a little bit, but in the big picture of things, it's just like in the stock market. If you zoom back, you kind of see what the story was. We were way up here on foreclosures. We're still way, way, way down at historical lows. The issue is not that. The issue is buyers are not willing to buy right now. Prices are too high combined with high interest rates. People don't want to lock into a big. Now, look, there's still activity going on, different markets, different things. I get that. If you look at the overall numbers, there's been a little decrease in value because the demand side is not there right now. So rather interesting. Now, segmented markets, high-end market around here, still going nuts. Lower end market in states that we buy these notes in, Michigan, Ohio, those areas, unaffected, and if anything, going up, okay, because they're not really in the banking realm. Our borrowers are already paying higher than bank rates, but their payments are lower than rent, so a different dynamic. But important to have that sort of thing. So BPOs, again, if you want my advice, make that your default position. That'll also tie into the timing of closing these transactions. One of the common questions I get all the time is how long does a deal take to close? And a lot of things in this business, the truthful answer is it depends. It's not the answer everybody loves to hear, but it is the most truthful answer. It depends, because it depends on the seller and how quickly they're responding. It depends on the buyer, how quickly they're responding, and it depends on the third parties, how quickly they are responding. Borrower's out of the picture in this case. The borrower doesn't even know what's going on. So it's really just those three parties, buyer, seller, and third parties. So a couple of the deals, four of the deals that I was working on, have been working on really for 45. That's bet it's close to 45 days. If I look in the background here, I know it's well past 30 days. We passed that mark. Um, just held up. Why is it taking so long? Because a deal should close within 30 days. If you want a more definitive, it depends. It should close within 30 days. Okay. Um, why is this one taking 45? Let me see, 22, 42. Yeah, yeah. We're coming up on 2 months on these four deals. Why has that been held up? It hasn't been on my part, the buyer. Um, there have been some things with the seller that held it up, because what I showed them was their state statutes in the states that these deals are located in that require that the contract for deed is recorded if they sell it. So I had to have them record that because if they didn't have it recorded and I bought it, that triggers something where the seller could void my contract. Pardon me, the borrower could void my contract. You can have a contract for deed in this state and not record it, and you're totally fine. It's totally enforceable. But for whatever reason they put in the law, if you sell that contract to deed for another party, that contract can be deemed void. And I don't want to find out what that looks like. I don't want to find out the legal process and find out that, wow, I bought this note for 30 grand. And now, because they didn't record it before and I'm trying to record it now, they go unenforceable. You lost $30,000. So, kind of important. So that was one holdup. And again, nothing wrong on their part because when they bought this deal, this house, and they sold it with seller financing, they were told by somebody, and rightfully so, you don't need to record the contract for deed. And they were totally right. But I have to be a smart investor and go, well, wait a minute, though. If I buy it, that rule changes. Okay. So, and it also said, by the way, just to follow up on this, back in years in past, when they didn't have these rules, because a lot of these came around after the fact, you would have a contract for deed unrecorded, and you would just keep it unrecorded and go with that. And again, that could normally work out fine, but if they don't pay down the line and then you go to enforce it, now these laws will hit you up. So then people would go, well, I'll buy it and then I'll record theirs and I'll record mine. This statute clearly said it must be recorded before you purchase. So I couldn't buy the note, record theirs, and record mine because clearly it would show when I bought it when they recorded it because they recorded it several years past. So pretty important, right? So that was a little bit of a holdup, but good seller, they got on it. They went to e-record. They got the recording done. Thankfully, they could e-record it in that county. They got it done. They showed me proof of that. Boom, moving on. Now, waiting for BPOs, trying to find somebody to do a BPO. So third-party vendor held up the deal on that. So now I get Valor in there, and I hope to have those BPOs coming in today or tomorrow, and we'll move on. So yes, there can be holdups on those things. There was another one that we were buying. My clients were out of the country, so the deal moved pretty rapidly to the point where we have to put money in escrow. So I'm partnering with my client here. So I put my share of the money in the escrow, but they're out of the country and they're traveling and they're like, we won't be home for about another 5 days. And it just so happened that the deal progressed pretty quickly while they were gone. So they could not wire the money. Okay. So that was on us. That was on the buyers. We delayed that process by 5 days because, like I said, they were unable to wire. As soon as they got back, we remedied that situation and we moved on. And then you have deals like the one I was just working this morning. And let's see if I can open that one up. This one, I would bet you we have it from start when I first contacted the seller and started my due diligence process to finish. I bet that was, let's see, I'm looking in the background here. Oh, it's a little longer than I thought. I was going to say 15 days. It was 17 days, everybody. And we are done with that deal. Start to finish, found the deal, did my research. Now, look, I did request additional information from the seller. I needed proof of deposits. I needed, they had a mistake on the note that they had to correct. So they had to go back and correct that and send it to me. Got it notarized. Great. So I showed them things that were incorrect that needed to be corrected before we could close, but they were on it, man. The seller was right on it. So if you have a good seller that's responsive, a good buyer that's responsive, and a third party vendor that's responsive, things can go pretty darn quick. Now, in this case, I didn't need a BPO. All right. So I didn't have that third party vendor involved in this transaction. I also didn't need a title report. My default position, by the way, with titles get that too. That's a different topic. I didn't need a title report. Well, I did a title report myself. It was very clear to me what happened, that the title was clear. I'm good to go. So without those third parties, it was just boom, buyer and seller working together. 17 days. The only step right now, which he's probably doing as I speak, because he just texted me back here. Yeah, he just 19 minutes ago just texted me back, so he's on it. He'll have these other documents signed, and we're done. Funds will be dispersed. He can go on his vacation tomorrow, and everything is good. So how long does it take to close a note deal? Typically 30 days. Can it be quicker? Heck yeah. Like I just showed you. Can it be longer? Yes, indeed it can. Why? Because we're dealing with three different variables. So the other lesson you can take out of that is if you're a note buyer, be responsive, right? Check back, go through communication. It'll keep moving the deal forward. Right? There's going to be things that hey, I need this on the note. It doesn't stop me. I told him, hey, we need to get this note corrected. Great, I'll get it corrected. It didn't stop me from all the other steps involved. I just kept moving forward because I knew he was going to come around and correct it. So be proactive. On the seller side, same thing. Check your emails or check your timeline on PaperStack or whatever source that you're using and respond back. Provide documentations, anticipate questions. When things come up, smart note buyers like myself are going to find mistakes. Okay, this person was shocked, quite frankly. They were like, "Wow, you were the only person who saw that." He goes, "I cannot believe nobody on our staff even saw that mistake. It was that glaring." But again, when you're working on a bunch of deals, these kind of mistakes are made. So when I'm looking through with a fine tooth comb, I might come up with some. Boom, they responded perfectly. Everything I needed, they got done. I could check off all the boxes. Boom, 17 days. They got their money. We got our note. Everybody's happy. So a couple of good lessons in there. That's all the stuff I've been working with this last 45 days or so. So some of the case studies I think I shared through social media or things like that. So I'll have all these done in case studies, but I think I shared some of that. But those are the important lessons behind all of those items. So hope you all enjoyed that and look forward to putting together another Water Cooler Wednesday. And please share the show with a friend. I put it on my YouTube channel. And if you could please subscribe to the YouTube channel, I would appreciate that. Let other people know about it. I put my tip of the day on there as well. I share stuff on X. I share stuff on LinkedIn, Facebook, obviously as well. So if you could let people know that I'm putting out some good content for them, I certainly would appreciate that as well. If you're new to the business and want to learn a little bit more, a good start is go to Amazon.com. Just search for my name, Kevin Shortell or just search for Real Estate Without Renters. Great book, very informative, a good read, not boring, but definitely drills down into the material. If you read that book, you'll know if you want to get involved in the note business or not. And you'll know a lot more than some people are getting from some of the trainings that are out there. So check that out. I think it's 24 bucks or something like that on Amazon. So there you go. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I do appreciate it and looking forward to talking to you again real soon.